Good morning. I'm Robert Houck with the Law Office of Houck and Downing. I'm a local attorney in town. We specialize in veterans benefits and elder law, which includes wills, trust, probate, those kinds of issues, along with elder abuse. We try to keep our practice up and running every day and working with our senior citizens. We always do a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. Nothing that we speak about today can be constituted as legal advice. You need to seek an attorney and have a one-on-one meeting with an attorney before you take any legal action, because your circumstance, the case that you're thinking about, may be a lot different than the things we're talking about today. And today we're going to be talking about the disease called Parkinson's and how it affects people. And the statistics on Parkinson's are amazing. I have two people here from the Parkinson's support group with me, Ken and Marcie. Ken, why don't you introduce yourself, and Marcie, give your full names so people know who you are.
My name is Ken Rivera, and this is my wife Marcie. We've been part of the Parkinson's support group for the last 6 months. We're working on helping get involved more in a leadership role, and that's why we're here today, to help people understand what the disease is all about.
The Parkinson's support group is the support group giving support to caregivers and people who have Parkinson's. It's a nasty disease. We know of it personally within our own family. We have a family member who has Parkinson's, had it for years. The support group meets on the second Saturday of every month at the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Service Center, which is at 5340 North Fresno Street in Fresno, California. Meetings start at 10 a.m. and they end at noon, and they generally go out for lunch afterwards. It's a very good group of people. If you know somebody that has Parkinson's, or you have somebody in your family who has Parkinson's, you should be a part of the support group. I'm going to give you just some quick statistical backgrounds on Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease affects approximately 60,000 people are diagnosed each year. That does not reflect the number of cases that go undiagnosed. As many as 1 million people in the United States live with Parkinson's disease, and it can be a very debilitating disease. And the people who have Parkinson's, the numbers, more people have that than have multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, and Lou Gehrig's disease combined. It is striking more and more people, and the Central Valley of California is one of the high-intensity groups, areas. And I had the distinct privilege of listening to a doctor from the Veterans Administration talk about Parkinson's disease and the connection to the Central Valley, and he told the group, which is Veteran Service Officers Group, that the Central Valley was the only place where they found more people who had the markers for being exposed to the pesticides and chemicals than did out of Vietnam. So, Ken and Marcie, why don't you explain a little bit about what you guys get out of the group, and I see Marcie's over here taking notes like mad.
Yeah, Marcie does do a good job for us taking notes and keeping us kind of straight and narrow. When I first was diagnosed in June of 2015, my wife was really concerned because I was really struggling with speaking and focusing and walking and stiffness and shaking, and she was looking for some support for me, and she found a couple of resources. One was the Greater Fresno Parkinson's Support Group, and we started going to those meetings in July, and they have them every month except August, where they take a month off for vacation. But it's always the second week of the month, bring in guest speakers to talk about the disease and the different medicines and procedures that are available for Parkinson's patients. And as you know, it's a degenerative disease, so it's not going to be cured. There's no cure for it yet, but there are ways to treat the symptoms, and that's kind of what we're after right now. But the support group has been excellent. We've made some friends. It's a good social contact, and it's a good way to get information about the new medicines and procedures that are available.
And Marcie, from a caregiver, Parkinson's has it's a two-person disease, as I call it. It has the person who's been diagnosed or actually has the disease of Parkinson's. Then there's the caregivers, and so you're in that caregivers. You're the second person, as I call it, that's affected by the disease. And do you get help from the support group with caregiving issues?
Yes, I actually reached out to the website before we were diagnosed. I was that surfer looking to see what was wrong with my husband before we could get into a doctor, because that was taking a length of time. Our local doctor kept telling us, no, you're having medicine side effects. And I just kept watching my husband just diminish and suffer and shrink away. And so I reached out to the support group and got information just from them. And we personally had called Stanford to try to get in because we didn't have anything locally. So we had a doctor appointment up in Stanford, and they are the ones that confirmed Parkinson after a series of tests. So for the caregiver, I kind of claim that we're in it together because we have to balance each other out. I have to stay calm, which is hard, and not get upset, and I have to be strong for him when times get frustrating or our memory declines, and we have to keep our medicines on time, and so, and I have to, we both have to adjust. You know, the movements we can't control, but we talk about it. He's suffered a lot in his bedtime routine and sleeping. He has a lot of night movements, and so together we work through those.
Okay.
Because it's a partnership. But the support group has been wonderful. Like he mentioned, the friends, the ideas we learn from them and others are very helpful. Hints, tidbits. So it's been great.
We have, as I said, we have a family member who has the disease, and it's been a big help for us because we're caregivers. We found out firsthand, but I want to find out yours. Another little statistic, there are estimated to be 7 to 10 million people worldwide living with Parkinson's disease. And it is a disease that the incidence of it increases with age. They're estimated 4% of the people with Parkinson's disease are diagnosed before the age of 50. So that leaves a very large percentage that come after the age of 60. Men are 1.5 times more likely to have Parkinson's than women. So you mentioned the symptoms. Why don't you, Marcie, talk about the symptoms with you and Ken and why you kept looking?
Well, whether it was denial by my husband, I slowly watched his walk change. He started to stoop over more. He held dominant one side or the other. His handwriting began to change. His memory got very clouded, forgetting just things that are normal because he's been routine and on things. But in the fall, he mentioned some stomach distress, and he had a great stomach. And when he mentioned that in the fall, I noted that down on a calendar and then just started watching because it's the brain function to the stomach. And then from the fall on, he began to have motion difficulty, and others would stop me and say, "Is your husband okay? He looks like he might have had a stroke." And I kept saying, "No, we make excuses. Oh, he's tired, or he was having a reaction to a medicine." And he wasn't on that many medicines to begin with. Several years ago, the doctor told him he had a serotonin blowout. And so we were believing to come back from the serotonin blowout in his brain from exhaustion and fatigue. And so we kept thinking we are recovering from the serotonin blowout and surviving, but in reality, he kept going, having different symptoms and ailments, and we were masking those.
And I couldn't speak. My
Yeah.
my voice was very low and strained. It's a little bit difficult now, but not the way it used to be. I could barely talk. And when I was teaching, sometimes I'd be talking to my students, all of a sudden I'd freeze up. And I knew I was having some issues, some pretty serious issues. And exhaustion was part of it as well.
So when you talk about freezing up, what was that like? Like,
It was, I laughed. I'd be talking to the students, and all of a sudden I couldn't get it out. And the kids would say, "Are you all right, Mr. Rivera?" I'd say, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I'd battle through it, and I started to get real tired, and I just, pass it off as just, doing too much and being too busy. And all the while, it was the symptoms, the underlying symptoms of Parkinson's, of the fatigue and the loss of voice and the quiet voice and the tremors. My left side would stiffen up, and I'd be playing a game of Uno with the students during lunch. We'd play a card game, and my left hand would be, it would freeze up. I thought to myself, how odd, why is my hand freezing up? And I just pass it on.
the symptoms is a big thing, and I unfortunately missed the January meeting, but they had a Dr. Zhao, am I saying that right?
That's good.
University Neurology Associates, who came in to speak. And Dr. Zhao is a movement disorder specialist. And the Central Valley has not had a movement disorder specialist in a long time. And we'll talk a little bit about that, I guess, when we come back from break. I think we're due for a break, aren't we, Mike? Okay. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back in a little bit. Okay, thank you. I'm back again with Ken and Marcie from the Greater Fresno Area Parkinson's Support Group. Get that down right. And we've been talking about Dr. Zhao and the fact that there had not been a movement disorder specialist in Fresno for a long time. The closest one was either in Bakersfield, or you had to go up to the Bay Area to find one. And so she was talking about different things. Marcie, you mentioned that there's now some new technology that she talked about.
Yes. She mentioned that there is a DAP scan. It's a nuclear machine that they'll be able to go in and research. And it's now available in our local area here in Fresno. And that will be very beneficial.
Prior to
For
this,
everyone.
in order to get that type of scanning, you had to go to the Bay Area or down to the LA area, as I recall, right. They have different speakers come in each month. The February 13th, the speaker is going to be Cindy Fuller, who's a physical therapist, will be speaking on balance wear, which is a new stabilizing garment to help people improve their balance and their mobility. On March 12th, I'll be talking there about the California Senior Legislature and how they need money because their donations have been going down every year, and we're in danger of losing the California Senior Legislature because the donations have dropped off that much. It is a tax-exempt donation. You can get a tax deduction for donating to it. And all the senior legislature serve without pay. I'm the senior senator from this area, and we put in a lot of time, and it's all volunteer stuff. Well, let's get back and we'll talk about Parkinson's a little bit. One of the genetic factors that I keep a research file at the office on different diseases and things, and I pull it together because you have a lot of knowledge, but you sometimes have to keep it all in one place in order to really use it. There is a 2 to 4% risk for Parkinson's among people over the age of 60 compared to a 1 to 2% in the general population. Some of you will remember Michael J. Fox, who was doing a movie when he first noted that he had a slight tremor in one finger of a hand. And Ken, did you find that your symptoms grew past or spread to other areas? You're talking about your left hand.
Yeah, it went from my left hand to my left leg, started stiffening up, and I was dragging that a bit. But it kind of manifested itself in my left side. That's where I get the shakes.
Yeah.
My left arm started to stiffen and raise up. My left shoulder was stiff. My left side was stiff. I thought it was just something in my neck. And it actually was the beginning of the onset of the Parkinson's, the stiffness and rigidity.
And one of the things that's very helpful in any of these diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's, which has a link to Parkinson's, by the way, I want to keep that out there in front of everybody, that the two diseases are closely related, and a lot of times people with Parkinson's will develop dementia issues. Alzheimer's is a subset of the disease called dementia, and Parkinson's is close as I can call it in lay people's terms, is like a first cousin, and or better. And it does. A lot of people who have dementia will develop Parkinson's symptoms, and vice versa. Did anybody in your family have Parkinson's disease before? Do you remember?
You know, as I thought back, my mom used to twitch a lot.
Yeah.
Her fingers would twitch, her toes would twitch. Sometimes her mouth would get a little bit twitchy. And we used to call her Nervine. My mom would call her Nervine, like she was just nervous, because she was always nervous about something. So she never got diagnosed to that. But as I thought more and more about my mom's movements, I could see her having some beginnings of Parkinson's.
There is, according to some of the research, the reason I asked you the question, about 15 to 25% of the people with Parkinson's report having a relative with the disease. And it's a little higher if you have a first-degree relative, such as a parent or a sibling. You have a 4 to 9% higher chance of developing Parkinson's compared to the general population. They have also found some gene mutations, which I won't go into because it's scientific Latin, not Greek. But it's just as hard to pronounce. But there can be some work there. There are also some issues called environmental factors. Now, you said you were a teacher?
Yes,
How long were you a teacher?
about 30 years.
Where did you work, here in the Valley?
I worked in the Bay Area, in Redwood City, California,
Wow,
and
okay.
then here in Fresno for the County Office of Education, and then in Fort Madera Unified School District.
So how long were you in the Valley area teaching?
Since '93.
Since '93. That's a long time. They have found, like I said earlier, a Parkinson's cluster, if you will, I think is one of the terms that they use, in the Valley, and there is a growing idea among science and researchers that pesticides are a key factor in the environmental aspect of this. So even though you were not on a farm, if you're living in the valley, you get exposed to it through the air and through the water as well. There are certain things. One of the things for veterans, exposure to Agent Orange, which was a high potent herbicide, if you will, that they used in Vietnam, and Agent Orange has a lot of bad effects. Among them are it's related to diabetes, it's related to heart disease, and it's related to several types of cancer, as well as Parkinson's disease. If you're a veteran and you served in Vietnam and you have Parkinson's disease or heart disease, you can contact our office and talk about the benefits of getting your case on file with the Veterans Administration. Parkinson's disease is pretty much 100% disability rating from the VA. The nice thing about that rating, it's a bad thing to have it, but there is a good side. If you have a spouse, your spouse can get some benefits as well, and get other benefits after you pass. Plus, you get all your medical free through the VA. So that's one of the reasons you want to, if you've had that, to come in here. Parkinson's is not a new disease. It's been around for over 200 years. There was a gentleman by the name of Parkinson who first noted the disease. And there are a lot of different, manifestations of the disease. And you've talked about some of yours, but it's not always a tremor of the hand or a tremor of the face or a tremor someplace else. You've talked about the stiffness.
Yeah, well, not only would I get stiff, I was used to talking in front of groups of people and large groups of people and in front of students, and all of a sudden I found that my focus and my concentration was starting to wane, and I wasn't being able to put my thoughts in an organized manner as I was speaking, and I thought, what's that all about? So that started to bother me. And then, the fatigue really was something that I would get plenty of rest, and I was still tired, and I couldn't understand what that was about. And the doctor says, well, you're just kind of recovering from the jobs you've had and the business you've been in and the busyness you've had.
If you go on the web, you can find a lot of stuff, but there is a Parkinson's support group nationwide page that has a lot of information where a lot of the statistics I'm giving you today and a lot of the information came from directly from that site. And they list symptoms in three different categories. The main category is what they call a major motor function, which is what you're talking about, where you can get tremors. About 70% of the people experience a slight tremor in the hand or a foot or one side of the body, which was your left side.
Right.
It came along. Less commonly in the jaw or the face. A relative in our family that has it, it is now the disease spread from one hand to the other and eventually to the where they have it now in their face. Typically, it says that the fingers of the hand will tremble when folded in a lap or when the arm is held loosely at the side, when the limb is at rest. Oddly enough, you have mentioned that it affects your sleep, which is what people don't expect the disease to do. But with our family member, when they're asleep, there are no tremors, which is an odd thing. You would expect it to go on, but it's when you're awake is when the symptoms are worse.
Right.
But you're having trouble sleeping too.
It's getting better.
It's getting better?
Yeah.
So there are a number of different medications that are out there, and the medications you've got to follow with your doctor, and you've got to be really fast with it. There's something called bradykinesia, which is a slow movement. When the rest of your body won't move as fast as it should. They may have trouble buttoning a shirt, which is beginning to sound like me. They may walk with short, shuffling steps. One of my submarine veterans, fellow submarine veterans, he takes about a 6-inch step. And I need to talk with him about this because I had not noted that before. Rigidity causes stiffness and inflexibility in the limbs and the neck and the trunk. And this rigidity might be the only symptom. I remember one of the former members of the Parkinson's support group, who's since passed, would get that rigidity, and they were doing surgery on him, and it locked up, and it ended up killing him with the side effect of it. But he had no shaking, no trembling, no nothing in his hands. Postural instability is one of the most important signs of it. Is a tendency to be unstable when you're standing upright without alcohol. A person with postural instability has lost some of the reflexes needed for maintaining an upright posture and may topple backwards if jostled even slightly. And that's a big clue. And there's a lot of seniors who have that, and that some of that can be age, and some of it could be a Parkinson's. You've got to get to a doctor, and there is no blood test for Parkinson's. That's right. You shaking your head and
every test.
Memory test. Yeah.
Every test. Memory. They did a memory test.
Sure, the memory test. They
Balance.
try to take your hands and have you stick them out, see if they were shaking, and then they'd see if you had strength, lifting them up, and then they'd watch you walk.
Yeah.
The doctor wanted to see you walk, and he could tell by your gait and whether you'd swing your arms, whether you had some symptoms of Parkinson's.
Huh.
So there's different ways that they can tell, but mainly it's by sight and by just a few physical tests, a couple mental tests.
Yeah,
Smell.
there's no lab test. They can't draw blood or
Yeah.
do scans or anything like that necessarily until that people have the disease, which makes it very hard to diagnose and which makes it possible to misdiagnose,
Yeah, very
as
easily.
you were saying, because you had the symptoms, the overt symptoms, for a while before they ever diagnosed you. And who was missing? Was it your family physician that was missing this?
I have a really good family physician, and he's been my physician for over 20 years, and I got to a point where my wife said to him, I think he might have Parkinson's. He goes, oh, no, we don't want him to have that. I think, he was so concerned that I didn't have that. He went through all the other tests, and he did brain scans and CT scans, and he did every scan available to see if there was something wrong with my brain.
Yeah, see if there was a tumor or something.
Right, he was
caused it.
trying to check everything out first.
Yeah.
And then finally we came up, did the Parkinson's, met with a neurologist in the area. He initially diagnosed me, and then I went to Stanford for a follow-up, and they confirmed the diagnosis.
That's been the hard things here at Fresno, is that until this doctor we just mentioned came to the area, we didn't really have a doctor in the area that specialized in Parkinson's,
Right.
which is odd considering the number of patients we have with Parkinson's. Mike, I think we need to look at the clock, need to go to break.
Okay. You're going out and
Welcome back. I'm Robert Houck with the Law of Houck and Downing, and we're talking about Parkinson's disease. One of the things that is important with this disease is that it's important anyway. It's especially important if you have Parkinson's disease, that you have durable powers of attorney for your health care and your finances in place, that you have some type of an estate plan in place. It's also sometimes helpful if you do life care planning, which is what we do in our office, where you can come in and get a total assessment. There may be things that we can do with the house that will make your life better or allow you to live in your home longer. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And Marcie, we were talking during the break about something this Dr. Zhao had talked about.
Yes, Dr. Zhao mentioned several things that are certainly important and vital. She said you could always exercise or move, whether you just walk through your home, stretch your arms. She said socialization is very important, so maybe talk to a neighbor or drive somewhere and visit with someone. Stretch out of your limits and branch yourself out. Speech therapy, music is very vital. Singing, or always have some type of music on to engage your brain. It could create a new memory and help you get further. You could also do physical therapy. Our support group now has a lady doing a twist and shout, a dance program. You can look on the website for that. We're also hoping to start a yoga class for Parkinson, mostly for balance and learning how to get up if we fall on the floor. And we did a 8-week course, and that was phenomenal. Dr. Audrey Tan led that, and she was patient, kind, but gave us so many resources. A tennis ball, a simple tennis ball at the bottom of our feet, rolling it to help our feet engage on the floor for balance. So whether you don't want to do a stretch, you could just have your tennis ball on the floor and massage your foot to help us balance. She also noted something that was very important. She said melanoma is very high in Parkinson patients. So to always make sure you go to your dermatologist and get tested, because we wouldn't want another disease on top of this one.
Well, that's something I'd not heard of before. And there's always new things coming out in the newsletter. You want to give the people the Parkinson Support Group website? You're telling me I just got updated?
Yeah,
So-
if you go to, you can put in your browser Greater Fresno Parkinson's Support Group, and it'll pop up, or you can use the letters G, F, P, S, G. That's my wife helped me out with the letters. But if you go to those, to use those letters or use that word, it'll pull up the site. It's easy to navigate. It's been updated. It's got good resources for help. It also gives you some ideas on webinars that are available. I guess they call webinars.
Yes.
Webinars that are available, and it's good to kind of just peruse the website to find out what's available for you.
Okay.
And on that, I'm just being the female in that, they are also accepting donations. We currently meet at the Deaf, Hard, and Hearing Center And we always need help setting up and tearing down. We have to get there early and set up all those tables and chairs. And from what we've experienced, that causes additional fatigue and stress. And after our meeting, my husband's usually out of it for about a day because he's had to set up those tables and chairs. We have had great volunteers that have done it, and we thank them, but we always look for volunteers for that.
It's Parkinson's disease. It's one of those things that my wife often, who also named Marcie, often refers to as a whack-a-mole kind of a thing. That little game, you hit the mole one place, it pops up someplace else. And so if you're treating Parkinson's, we found that if you treat one thing there, it may affect something else physiologically in the body that you need to tweak your other medicines, because as your doctor said, he was worried about it might be a side effect of some other meds. And you can take too many meds, and it's always careful procedure for people to when they go into their doctor. I keep a list of my meds on my iPhone, so when they go in and ask to say, what are you taking? Every time they give me something new or they take something off, I immediately update my meds list on my iPhone, so it's always there. And it's always a handy thing, because they were giving me, I had 3 different doctors prescribing meds because of a heart issue, and it caused a severe problem. I got very dehydrated, ended up at the ER because the medicines conflicted, and it can create a lot of problems. And that with Parkinson's is really a hard thing to do. Your newsletter has a thing that I saw first about 6-7 months ago. There is now what they call a stabilizing spoon available for people to eat with. And Marcie's nodding her head yes. Have you seen that? Or
No, I just read about it, and I'm looking forward just to seeing it and feel it, because a lot of it deals with our motor movements and opening things and closing, like Ziplocs. Everyone loves them, but for a Parkinson patient, they're not very handy.
They're not very handy. I first saw the thing about the stabilizing spoon, like say 6, 7, 8 months ago, and they were very expensive. We were looking at it for a family member. They were like $300 or $400, but now they're available free. If you go on and look at the Michael J. Fox website, the Foundation blog has some information on it. I saw this newsletter, which is really interesting, but it was developed by some computer programmers, and what it actually does is it's got a like we used to describe it as in the service, a gyroscope to keep things upright, and it senses the movement, and there's an algorithm in the spoon. Modern technology is great, and it actually moves the spoon to counteract the movement in the hand. You can interchange it with a fork or spoon, and for Parkinson's patients, that's really great, because the family member was using a big soup spoon just to eat practically anything from salad to regular food, because it was so hard with the tremors. And if you have hand tremors, feeding yourself with a fork can be a dangerous thing, because it's a sharp tine, and you could hurt yourself. There are other symptoms with Parkinson's that people should be aware of. One of the ones we pulled up is the secondary motor symptom, which is freezing up. All of a sudden you can't move. And I've seen this happen with family members. I've seen it happen at the Parkinson's support group, where people want to do something and their body will not allow them, it will not move. And you've talked about that too with you. And what did you attribute that to first time when you said you're freezing up?
You know, I thought it was something neurological in my hand, because the left hand would just stiffen, and I couldn't move the fingers. I'd have to physically turn them like this to get them to move. Yeah. And I have friends that get freezing. All of a sudden, we're walking together, and they'll stop. I'll say, "What's going on?" He says, "My legs are frozen."
Yeah.
And so then they just stay there for a second, and all of a sudden start moving. So it affects different areas.
And when that happens to him or her, they have a collapsible cane that they have maybe in their fanny bag or in their satchel, and then they just bring out their collapsible cane, undo it, and that helps them get up, or we help them sit down. And they usually have to take a medicine immediately and some liquid.
Yeah. One of the other symptoms you might note if you're out there is micrographia, which is a fancy Latin term for smaller handwriting. Your handwriting will diminish in size as they go along because they've lost that fine motor skill to work with their handwriting, and they get a mask-like expression sometimes too. Their faces may appear to be a lot less expressive than they used to be. And to show you how wide the ranges go, you can get an acceleration of the gait. Instead of freezing up, you can go too fast. There are some non-motor symptoms that generally will affect a person's mobility. The invisible symptoms, which you need to talk with your doctor about. Some of those can be a loss of sense of smell, a sleep disorder, which you talked about having,
Right.
and low blood pressure when standing up. Now, all of these symptoms that we've talked about with Parkinson's disease today can be a symptom of something else, which is really why it's important that you get in touch with the doctor, make sure your family doctor's up with Parkinson's. Then you talked about it for a little bit when I think we were off the air for there, and the doctor didn't want to make the call for Parkinson's.
Right.
He tried everything else.
He did everything to eliminate what it could be. He was
Yeah.
concerned I had a tumor because I had my slow speech and I had the masking look. I had to stare. And he didn't want, when we mentioned it might be Parkinson's, he said, "Oh, no, you don't want that."
Well, nobody wants it, but the diagnosis is critical. We're coming up on the time, and I have other appointments today after the show, so time for break, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm back. This is Robert Houck with the Law of Houck and Downing, your elder law special needs attorneys. We work doing estate planning for people who just want a regular estate plan, and also those who have a family member who has a special need, to make sure that that person is cared for after you pass. We're talking today with Ken and Marcie from the Parkinson's Support Group, and this is an important issue because there's a lot of people. The earlier statistics I had was like 60 million people worldwide have the disease. That's a lot of people. You know, as you're talking about some major deals. Some of the symptoms that for mild Parkinson's, you may have, your symptoms may be so mild that it's just a slight inconvenience. It's not a major problem. Like I said, we had a family member who had it, and it starts one place and it spreads. Anywhere from slight movements to the hands, often a tremor may occur on one side of the body. And Ken, again, that's you. It started on one side and worked as it did with our family member to the rest of the body.
Right.
So, when you get, one of the things that comes along with this is depression. Because, you know, it's Parkinson's, a lot of people, I think, look at it as a death sentence, and it's not. It is a major inconvenience, something you have to learn to deal with, but it can be dealt with, and that's where the Greater Fresno Area Parkinson's Support Group comes in, because that is as a group of people who has this. I saw it's a two-person disease. There's the person who has it and the person, their spouse or some other family member as a caregiver who has to work with that. One of the Marcie, you mentioned the first time you went to the support group, you just ended up in tears because it was overwhelming.
True.
Can you describe what that was like to have after you found out he had the disease and then you found the group?
Well, once we had a double dose of Parkinson, meaning we were diagnosed locally and we went to Stanford and we had that confirmation Our next was the support group, and I take notes. I took my notes, but to see the awareness, and there must have been 80 members there that day of all phases of Parkinson, caregivers, family members, understanding, friends that we know now that have had Parkinson for 15 years or longer. It affects all ages. The youngest was 38, all the way up to 80. Tears were just streaming, and a younger gentleman, came up to us and said, "You might not want to come every month. This is depressing." And he was exactly right, but it was also learning, and we needed to pick up our hands and legs and go with it to become involved so we could learn to help, to educate, maybe help find a cure, to raise awareness here in our valley, and to get more funding and help. Because now, even last week, 15 new members came in with Parkinson that keep getting diagnosed and learning. It is growing. This is real.
There's 15
New members.
15 new members. I have been involved with the group for several years, back when they used to meet at the church over on, I think it was Dakota, and they used to get 15, 20 people to the thing. Now there's 15 or 20 new members.
New members. There must have been maybe 80 there this past week. And granted, that's family, that's transportation, nurses, but we have 80 real people striving to learn, to help. And we're, like I say, we're all in it together. We have a couple that had a fundraiser this summer, disc frisbee for activity. Everybody's trying new ideas to raise awareness, money, funding, branch out. So it's...
I can't say enough about the support group. It, like I say, we've been involved with the years because of a family member who has the disease, and it is great. It is a great support network, and the hardest part with a lot of these things is on the part of the person who's contracted the disease is the denial of what's there. I think a big help for this is what you did, Marcie, is looking at what's going on and saying, this is not, I'm not satisfied with what the doctor's saying. And you have to look past, I think everybody has to be responsible with their own medical, do their own research and things, because a lot of times doctors today, as you found out personally, they don't want to call it a bad disease. And I've had my doctor say, well, I don't want to say you have that, because they're afraid of what it will do with the insurance and a lot of other things. So they can get to be some real problems there. But the support group there is, besides having the speakers that come in, I have found everybody there at that support group to be exceedingly friendly and willing to reach out, help, give advice, give phone numbers, and we've had a number of them who have become clients over the years, but I count among them friends who, if I'm not there, they'll call me up and say, why weren't you at the meeting? And we'll get on my case a little bit for that. So
also, San Joaquin Valley Rehab Hospital, they
Yes.
have a Parkinson exercise program weekly, every day of a week.
They have a twice-a-day Parkinson's group and a twice-a-day stretching class.
And it's for a reasonable fee a month, but it's well worth it because you also, it makes you get up, get out of your situation where you live, you get your socialization, you exercise a little, and they even have a swimming program at a different location. But for $35 or $50 a month, it's a good form of exercise.
yes, it is, and that program has been essential. I know our family member went there several times, and in fact, I went with him a couple of times. And San Joaquin Rehab has done a great thing with that, and the program has been around for several years now. I don't know how many, at least 3 or 4 years I think of, and they continue to do it. They continue to make great strides. They continue to work with people's doctors and the people themselves. One of the things is that Parkinson's is a progressive disease. It does get worse. I've had some of the doctors say that the disease itself won't kill you, but the side effects will. And I'm not so sure if the side effect is caused by the disease, if that's not the thing that's actually ending up being terminal. But as you get more moderate disease, the movement symptoms can occur on both sides of the body. The body moves more slowly, and we've seen that personally within the family. Get troubles with balance and coordination develop. Freezing episodes get much worse. Parkinson's medications will wear off between doses, and Parkinson's medications are an art form in itself because that requires constant monitoring. Have you found that with
Yes.
what you're doing? And some of the disease, the medicines can have some really nasty side effects. One of them is hallucinations. One of the ones, I think, is carbidopa, levodopa, is can cause hallucinations. We've seen cases where people are seeing things that aren't there. Fortunately, the times that occurred, the person we know with it was able to logically figure out that it wasn't going on. But when it gets to be more advanced, you have great difficulty walking. You may be in a wheelchair, have to have a walker. You may not be able to live alone, and this is where we look at life care planning, keeping you in your house as long as possible. We have a geriatrics case care person on staff at our office. She has her certificate in it. It's a great thing. I also know Dave Wassmiller here in town is a general contractor, and he has an ADA certified engineer on staff so they can help develop things for your house that will keep you there longer and work with us, and we can get all that stuff done. You may need help with activities of daily living. Cognitive programs can get worse. And we've talked a little bit about that, along with the balancing will get worse, that Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are at least first cousins, if not sisters and brothers, or whatever you would want to call it. They do go hand in hand, so need to watch that as we go along. Ken, Marcie, I can't thank you enough for coming down today.
Thanks
This
for
is a big
inviting
help.
us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Probably have people back again from the Parkinson's support group from time to time because it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't affect everybody instantaneously, and it goes like the valley fever will come through and then it's gone for a while. So with that, I think we're up at the time limit. I want to thank people for coming in. If you have a legal question regarding your estate or a child or somebody with special needs in your family, you have a veterans case issue, please get in touch with us, 229-8109. Thank you very much.
Thanks.